Welcome. I've created a series of open channel flow animations that I'd like to share with you. This animation shows an M2 curve ending in a free overfall. The source of change in this animation is a sluice gate that's located 100 feet upstream of the free overfall. Over the course of the animation, the gate lowers into the flow, eventually creating a hydraulic jump downstream of the gate and causing choke or energy gaining conditions upstream of the gate, initially resulting in a truncated M2 and later on in the animation an M1 upstream of the gate. Before we go any further, let's first go over the different subfigures that you see on the screen in front of you. So the two upper graphs are depictions of the flow itself. The upper right is focused just on the last 100 feet before the free overfall. We have the gate shown in red. We have the M2 profile shown in dark blue downstream of the gate and shown in cyan upstream of the gate. The dashed line that you see corresponds to normal depth for this particular flow. The upper left is obviously the conditions upstream of the gate. Please notice that the x-axis is much longer, 2,000 feet upstream of the gate. That's actually not the full distance of the M2, but it's really the length that's worth looking at in this animation. In the lower curves, we have an EY or energy depth diagram, energy on the horizontal, depth on the vertical, and the vertical line is the energy that's associated with the gate opening at this time. Over the course of the animation, this vertical line will translate to the right. At the same time, the horizontal line is the gate opening itself, and you'll see over the course of the animation it's going to lower to depths approaching half a foot, even less than half a foot. And the remaining two figures are graphs of the lengths of the M2 and M3 curve downstream of the gate and the M2 and M1 curve upstream of the gate. And we'll look at these with more scrutiny later on in the animation. There's nothing really to see yet with either of these last two subfigures. So let's set the animation in motion, and I'll describe what you're seeing. You should slowly start to see, immediately downstream of the gate opening, starting to become visible, a feature here, and I'll explain what that is. Just watch it evolve for a few moments. And I'm going to pause it right there. Okay, what you're looking at is a hypothetical M3 curve, if it could exist. That's the lower part of this feature. And then the upper part of this feature is a hypothetical conjugate to that M3 curve, if the M3 curve actually existed. But as the caption says, the gate has as yet no effect. We do not have enough energy to overcome basically the flow represented by the M2 profile. So nothing is happening yet, but it soon will. So let's let the animation go forward a little bit more. You can see it's growing more distinct here, and we've had a change in the caption, so let's explore that. We now have what's called a drown jump downstream of the gate, and we have a truncated M2 upstream of the gate. What is meant by that? For the drown jump, we have the gate setting up a depth which is consistent, which is basically small enough that its conjugate is met by the M2 curve. The problem is that there still isn't enough energy to account for the full energy loss that would happen with a jump. So we have a drown jump. What you see is a lot of turbulence on the downstream face of the gate, but we don't actually see true supercritical flow yet. Very subtle, but it is slightly visible. The depth immediately upstream of the gate, you should be able to see, is a little bit greater than the depth immediately downstream of the gate. And that's what's meant by the truncated M2 upstream of the gate. The gate is starting to impose a choke. The gate is starting to gather energy upstream of the gate, and that energy that's being gathered upstream of the gate is what's being lost in the turbulence immediately downstream of the gate. Beyond that, not too much more to report. Let's let this animation go forward. Okay, you can see this feature growing. You can see the M2 rising, and now the caption has changed once again. Let's explore that. So now the gate opening has become small enough that we have a true jump downstream of the gate. The full flow history that we see going on is we have an M2 profile that ends at a depth much greater than on the other side of the gate, as you can see. So we've gathered energy upstream of the gate. Downstream of the gate, we have a true M3 profile. Then we have a hydraulic jump, this vertical black bar, and then we have an M2 curve downstream of the gate. Let's take a look at that from an EY perspective. You can see that there is actually the energy associated with normal depth is slightly higher than the energy of the gate. Then we move down vertically because of the gate to the supercritical alternate depth. We have an M3 curve, hydraulic jump, which loses a bit of energy, and then an M2 curve down to critical depth. The positive gains in the length of the M3 curve cancels the losses in the M2 curve, such that the sum remains at 100 feet, which is the distance between the gate and the downstream free overfall. And you can see that the M2 curve upstream of the gate is decelerating rapidly, heading for zero pretty shortly. Let's let the animation go forward a little bit more, and there we have crossed into new regime. You can see now that the upstream of the gate, that the curve is painted in green and that it resides above normal depth. That is to reflect that we now have an M1 curve upstream of the gate, and jump moving further downstream. If we look at it from an EY perspective, we have normal depth, and now we actually move up the EY diagram to the energy associated with the gate. The gate is causing a choke, causing an energy gain. That gets us to this point. The gate moves us down to the supercritical alternate. We have a longer M3, a jump, and an M2 profile to critical. You can see it may be a little bit difficult to see, but there's now an M1 curve that's being plotted here, and that will become more apparent as we reach the end of our animation. Let's now go to the end of the animation. You can see the depth is increasing rapidly upstream of the gate. The jump continues to translate downstream. You can see the gate energy increasing rapidly, and the EY diagram reflecting that as well. And I believe there we've reached the end of our animation. Let's take one final look at that. Our jump is as far downstream as we've observed it. Our depth upstream of the gate is as deep as we've seen it, meaning that the gate opening is as small as it's been, and so it requires more energy to pass through the gate. So If we look at the full cycle from far upstream to the end of the free overfall, far upstream we're at normal depth, we move and gain energy on an M1 curve up to here. That's where we are at the gate. The gate brings us to supercritical conditions at this very shallow supercritical depth immediately downstream of the gate. We lose energy on the M3 profile. We finally reach our conjugate, and therefore we can jump. We have a jump, losing a little bit more energy, and then an M2 profile. From a length of M2 and M3 profile downstream of the gate, the M3 has gained up to about 20 feet in distance, a little bit more, and the M2 profile has lost by the same amount. Finally, you can see that there is an M1 profile that seems to go all the way back to 12,000 feet. We only see the first 2,000 feet, but it actually proceeds an additional 10,000 feet upstream. Okay, so with that, thank you very much for your attention. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Certainly a lot to discuss in this video. Thank you for watching. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comment area below. Also, I invite you to look in the description for this video for more details about it, for a link to my book, and a link to other animations that illustrate other concepts from my book.